Hi and welcome. Thanks for coming. Want to tell you a bit more about using the HashiStack in AWS, and really what that's going to do is about telling people how they can make the most of HashiCorp tools inside the cloud. I'm Will Hall, DevOps consultant for HeliCloud, and really what we're aiming at talking about today is how the cloud infrastructure and the deployment of that infrastructure is really only about software. There's a lot of difficulties when we come to thinking about the differences of our different roles and how we are deploying applications. But if we think about our actual cloud platforms we're deploying to, it is only software. There isn't a great distinction between a router, a network, a virtual machine, or anything similar to that. Now, what we're going to cover today is really looking at how we can think of AWS as a cloud platform. When we imagine AWS, you can already know there are hundreds of services. There are thousands of configurations that are available inside those services. And that leads to millions of combinations for deploying applications or services or storage on top of a cloud platform. And how you manage to manage, secure, connect, administer, and deliver those solutions is really part of the key of why the HashiStack is so heavily used in both HeliCloud and also a large proportion of other large businesses who are trying to deliver enterprise class infrastructure and also be able to innovate with that. My name is Will Hall. I'm a DevOps consultant at HeliCloud. I also work as a HashiCorp implementation consultant, and in my spare time, of which there is little, I also work as a GitLab hero and a Docker community leader. And in that, I run a lot of the DevOps-based initiatives behind HeliCloud, who are a very exciting AWS partner, and we deliver a lot of our solutions on AWS. Now, a lot of what I deal with day to day is DevOps and how it enables people on their cloud native journey. Now, whether we can think of cloud native as being a new marketing term or an existing term, it's really the idea of we have an objective of moving some of our applications and infrastructure to the cloud, and how we deliver that overall starts to deliver the value that we really want from our deployments and our journey into the cloud. We can look at whether we're going to run evolution, revolution, or transformation. And really, when we're thinking of evolution, we're just looking at lifting and shifting things. When we're looking at revolution and transformation, we're looking at really changing the underlying aspects of our applications. And for me, it is DevOps that is used to accelerate and consolidate those cloud journeys between these different aspects. So I hear a lot about DevOps being a particular thing, the HashiStack being a DevOps tool set, and that's true in many ways. But when we imagine DevOps, we can also imagine it as both tools, projects, people, and experience. So the HashiStack is a really, really great tool to be able to manage all of those infrastructure problems that are really hard to manage, with thousands of configurations. But having people who have the right experience and who are already set up to run these in a cognizant and aware way is partly of the essential means of delivering that journey. When we think of the HashiStack, we can think of the tools that HashiCorp is using for largely doing a level of application and infrastructure automation. We can see through provision, secure, connect, and run that we've got a collection of tools that are used by developers and DevOps engineers and infrastructure engineers to deliver what's needed by the projects. Now, inside HeliCloud, we heavily use Terraform and Vault for delivering the application needs and infrastructure as code, policy as code, secrets management, and those kind of things. But also we can see that we can use Console as a service mesh to connect what we want, and alongside Nomad, which can do workload and container orchestration, actually gives us the ability to run all of these in a synced up tool way. And that's why we have this portmanteau of HashiStack, which is the HashiCorp tool stack, and that's really delivering a lot of value for modern environments. If we imagine HeliCloud as a large infrastructure as code provider to people, we use AWS infrastructure and services heavily, and 95% of what we deliver is actually powered from Terraform. So we have built a large collection of libraries, modules, re-implementable architectures that can deliver infrastructure as code using Terraform to AWS. And that's using both AWS and HashiCorp's best practices. And we've been involved in developing those practices as well. Now, one of the big values of doing that in an infrastructure as code way is that we get to reuse and iterate on the architectural configurations that we have to find the best fit for the customer, but also to keep evolving and delivering even greater value as we continue. So we're always, looking at ways that we can achieve faster, more performant, more efficient, cheaper, better ways of the applications that we're working with and the delivery tools that support it. And that's part of what's in the nature of running HeliCloud, and it's really something that is enabled by the tools that HashiCorp deliver. So what I talked just then about was building reusable components, and that's something that we rely heavily on to be able to leverage great value for our customers. So whether that's landing zones or container factories or logging and error management, security and compliance control, cost optimization, these are all areas that we can look to plug into people's existing AWS environments and build out with Terraform and customize to the particular demands that the business has. And it gives both a way of doing some flexibility with regards to delivery, ensuring that we're already sticking with best practices, but it also leverages on existing architectural experience with AWS. So we can leverage our deep knowledge of the ecosystem in both camps, both the HashiCorp and the AWS camp, to actually deliver the most value that people can get in a consumable way, in a reusable way for moving to the next application or the next project. If we imagine that we have, the whole world of AWS, and being able to use the whole world of AWS is a challenging environment to be in. If we think about controlling AWS solutions, we're thinking about controlling multitudes of accounts with connected services, extending IAM roles, and really starting to deliver business value. And that's where a lot of the challenges come with actually expanding out your AWS use, is not with necessarily the applications that are running on a virtual machine or a cluster of virtual machines. It's controlling the entire cloud platform as an ecosystem. And that's really what the HashiStack enables users to run, is actually we can start to abstract our need to control AWS cloud platform through ClickOps. We can actually start to deliver it as part of a process, and becoming part of a process means that we actually hook in the extra parts that's required for effective and secure running of that cloud platform and be able to deliver a greater amount of business value. We also, as part of the HashiStack, get to actually own the infrastructure lifecycle. So the infrastructure lifecycle is something I've been talking about for a little while, but we need to be cognizant that whenever we are building a piece of infrastructure through any, if we go and put it into a server rack, or we go and install it via the AWS console, or if we go and install it via infrastructure as code, all of these things have a life cycle, and largely the infrastructure life cycle will be shorter than the life cycle of the data or the specific application that you're running. So we have to think about how we're going to continually be able to power this life cycle to iterate on it. And that goes from provisioning it, configuring it, deploying it, monitoring it, and destroying it at the end. So we can think of being provisioned with infrastructure as code with Terraform, and then we can configure that with connecting together secrets from Vault and services from Terraform. And if we're needing to connect that into a network, we can automatically add in console to connect our network, and that will enable us to deploy it into a running environment or switch over to an environment. And then at the end, we have the ability to destroy that environment and iterate on a new provision, a new configure. And it actually starts to iterate on the successes that people have and reduce the amount of failures that they're going to deliver overall, which in turn leads to a faster return on investment and a greater amount of value. And that's really what we're all striving to deliver. It's not that we are delivering projects for the automation sense of them, we are delivering them to deliver business value. Now, when we think about the challenges that we have, if you imagine back to those millions of configuration possibilities that AWS give you, and that's really good on the one hand, but really challenging on another. And it means that when you're choosing to scale out your use of the cloud, you have to choose the right tools. Now, I am opinionated towards that. I think that there is no better product at the moment than Terraform for delivering infrastructure as code. And I don't think there is a better product for all-round success than HashiCorp Vault for being able to deliver secrets management. Now, AWS Key Management and Secrets Manager is actually a really good product at working in depth on the tools that work inside AWS, and that can't be disagreed with. However, Vault gives us the ability to really extend that secrets management both inside our AWS platform, but also outside of the AWS ecosystem. So we can start to control API credentials inside an application, or we can look at encryption of data in transit that is not facilitated by an original legacy application, or we can look at actually enabling greater security, leasing and provisioning of roles to users and API keys to users. And we can think of Console and Nomad as giving the ability to really scale with elasticity. And because there are a connected product set already, it means that we get to deliver part of those solutions far faster and with a cognizance of the use of those tools in other places. And we also get to own them and deliver where it's best for you. So whether that's inside AWS as EC2 instances, or we can run them as EKS clusters, or we could run them as a cluster of machines and auto scaling, or any kind of things that suit the best practices for how you are operationally working can be delivered with the HashiStack inside AWS. All of this has been very good as kind of discussion around the practice of doing it, but a lot of time people want to see things like this in the real world to know that it actually works. Now, I can say this really works, and I have seen the real value that users get and developers get and companies that are deriving massive amounts of value. But this is not just out my say so. That is borne out by standards. We've worked previously with CGI about moving from the AWS console and CLI to revolutionizing them into using infrastructure as code with Terraform. And in that process, it standardized all of their deployment factors. So when we've got a standardization of deployments, you have a repeatable, iterative process that actually is delivering an amount of stability, security, visibility, and transparency for what people want. We also looked at delivering process control. So because we now have standardization of our deployments, we can now put CI/CD around that to manage the deployments. So our infrastructure lifecycle is managed by the tools that we want to use. And that means that we can start to put a management around the spiraling costs. And we can actually, with other tools, we can bring in a container factory as part of a reusable solution and actually deliver much greater value on top of what's already there. And that's really one of the big changes that comes from adopting using efficient infrastructure as code in AWS with tools that HashiCorp provide, is that it actually starts to mean that you are more capable to transform and innovate. And if we look at another example with a project that we ran in partnership with HashiCorp, that moved from a position where they wanted multi-cloud, and that multi-cloud included on-prem and various systems, and we were able to work in delivering Terraform for those multiple systems. They moved from having an idea where they had a golden image that was a large bash script that was often a challenge to run to actual configuration management with Ansible, and their secrets management that was mixed between different providers. They could centralize on Vault and actually start to extend that secret management as part of their automation process. And it really starts to give a lot back to not only the developers who are working on this, but the operations teams that have to develop alongside it, and people who are delivering the solutions as part of their business case. I wanted to not leave people without giving some real world examples. So, I've got a couple of really quick real world examples that are fully operational now. It's not separated from the operational world. So we have these examples such as this one, which is running Terraform entirely through a pipeline. So this is not only just Terraform though, it's running a Lambda function and creating new Docker containers. So if we look at the pipeline, we can actually see that when we're running our services through here, we are building, look at the pipeline, we are enabling us to lint the files that we're passing through. We've got Docker file lint, we've got ESLint because we're running a Lambda based on Node.js, and then we've got format checking of our Terraform, and we've got using TF-lint, and we've got YAML lint. We validate the Terraform works. We then build out containers that have this in as a package, so we can take the Lambda away and run it elsewhere if we want to, and we package it up. We then have a plan and apply, and there's a destroy function on the end. So we're actually able to deploy this solution to actually scale out our tools entirely in a GitOps method. There is no connection directly into AWS. We have already set this all up. You go and change the Lambda function, it will deploy a new Lambda function for you. There is no interaction with consoles. There is no approval process that's outside of this pipeline. And that really starts to deliver a lot, both to the teams that are working on these specific functions or applications, but also to the people who are being asked to check and deliver assurance around them. So we can see every single change that's happened, what that change has happened, who has approved that change. And we've also got another example that I wanted to highlight around, it's not impossible to very simply scale out running AWS credentials inside your local machine. So there's an example here, and I think people can see the URL, but it's also inside the notes, that we can actually enable the AWS secrets engine in Vault, and by the end of this very, very short tutorial, we're actually able to start giving people permissions to go and get themselves an access key and a secret token. So we can actually start to deliver people AWS credentials for a limited lease via a secure system that's tracking it. And also that doesn't extend just to users, it could be services that you're connecting to it. It could be any kind of additional services that are really starting to deliver that extra value. Now, if we imagine in a real world scenario, suddenly we're massively reducing our security scope because the API keys that we are using for deploying our Lambda function in the previous one, well, those keys are only valid for 20 minutes. So if and when we lose some of those credentials, actually it's not a problem because they are already invalid. So we're making a real leap forward in terms of delivering on that kind of zero trust or limited trust security. Close this. So hopefully that gives people a really super quick example of two ideal projects that people could go and run today. There is nothing that stops people from running them today, and they work to actually start delivering value really, really soon to people. Now I've also got a GitOps one that's coming up in GitLab with GitOps that we've had a small demo into today, that really starts to go more into how GitOps and especially with GitLab as a centralized method for deploying into AWS is actually going to help deliver a lot more on top of that. Now, I would love it if people could ask me some questions and engage with me about this. And I'm really passionate about how businesses can use infrastructure as code, policy as code, and modernize their stack that they can deliver on to really start delivering them value. If you can get in contact with me, then great. And if not, I hope you have a really great day, and I look forward to seeing you at an event or on a video in short time. Have a great day, and thank you very much for listening.